Hi, I'm Josh Rushing, and you're in the stream. Today, Guatemala's ex-president on trial for genocide. Will the ongoing legal battle finally earn justice for victims of the country's civil war? Our digital producer, Malika Bilal, is here monitoring all of your live feedback. During the show, tweet her using the hashtag AJStream. All right, Malika, what are we seeing in the community today?
Thanks, Josh. Well, we're seeing personal accounts. We're hearing stories from many people who were affected by this and lived during the Civil War. And this Facebook comment from Fabio is just one of several. He says, "I hope the Guatemalan justice will convict this criminal. I was forced to go into exile under his rule. The Maya people suffer a systematic extermination under his government." Now, for those of you at home, we want you to join the conversation as well and let us know what you think. So use the hashtag AJStream.
Joining us in studio is Marcia Esparza. She is founder and director of the Historical Memory Project. It documents state violence against indigenous communities in Latin America. Marcia, welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Thank you.
Remember, this is a conversation that's driven by you. One way you can participate is by submitting your comments or questions in a 30-second video. Just go to stream.aljazeera.com, and on the right-hand side there, you'll see a big red button that says record your comment. And it's just one more easy way that you could be in the stream.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Al-Ati. I'm a blogger and I'm in the stream.
Will trying former Guatemalan President Efrain Rios Montt be enough to heal the wounds of the country's 36-year civil war? Last week, testimony began with witnesses recounting the killings of women, children, and the elderly during raids by the Guatemalan military. One witness on Friday said, "They viewed us as if we were not people." Rios Montt, who led Guatemala in 1982 and 83, is being charged with genocide for the deaths of nearly 1,800 indigenous people. The killings were part of a military offensive to rid the country of leftist opposition forces. Rios Montt's rule was one of the bloodiest periods in the country's civil war, which, in over 3 decades, left roughly 200,000 people dead and 45,000 people disappeared. So what expectations are there for this trial? And is Guatemala on the right track toward achieving justice and reconciling with its violent past? Joining us to discuss these issues is Adriana Portillo Barto. She's a human rights activist and a survivor of the Guatemalan War. She's the founder of Where Are the Children, a nonprofit organization that searches for thousands of children who disappeared during Guatemala's civil war. She joins us via Skype in Chicago. And in Guatemala City, we have Estrada Zepeda. He's a Guatemalan journalist who has been covering the Rios Montt trial. Estrada, Adriana, welcome to you both. I think I'd like to begin with Adriana.
Thank you.
Well, first, let's talk about the defense lawyers for Rios Montt argued that he did not control military operations associated with the alleged genocide. But in the past, Rios Montt has actually stated otherwise. I want to show you a clip. This is from a documentary called Granito, How to Nail a Dictator. It features filmmaker Pamela Yates looking back at a 1982 interview she conducted with Rios Montt while he was in power. Take a look.
¿Qué diría a los cargos que es el ejército que está masacrando campesinos en las áreas rurales?
Diría que yo respeto la libertad de pensamiento.
¿Hay represión de parte del ejército?
No hay represión de parte del ejército. El valor nuestro está en nuestra capacidad de poder responder a las acciones de mando. Eso es lo más importante. El ejército está en capacidad de reaccionar, porque si yo no puedo controlar al ejército, entonces, ¿qué estoy haciendo aquí?
Clearly, at the end of that video, he seems to be saying something exactly contrary to what his defense lawyers are saying now. He was in charge of the military, but he says that the military wasn't repressive either. Adriana, can you describe to us what happened to your family during the Guatemalan War?
Yes, what happened to my family happened on September 11th of 1981. And in two simultaneous but separate operatives, the Guatemalan security forces detained and disappeared my father, who was 70 years old, my stepmother, a sister-in-law, my little sister, who was 18 months old, and my 2 older daughters, who were 10 and 9 years of age at the moment of their detention and disappearance. I have spent the last 31 years searching for my daughters and for my father and for my other relatives, dead or alive. But it seems like, nobody either can't help or don't want to help. So I am like day one, I don't know what happened whatsoever. I have brought the case to the United Nations. I brought it to the public ministry in Guatemala. It was the very first case after the peace accords were signed that were presented before the public ministry, and that involved 7 high-ranking officers, military officers. And I have been, I even asked for a FOIA. I requested a FOIA, from the United States government, because since the United States were the ones who fueled the war with their dollars and with their training and with their machines, they certainly know what happened to my family, and not only my family, but to the thousands and thousands of people that are disappeared, and children. So I requested a FOIA. And
Adriana, that happened the year before Rios Montt came to power. How did things change when Rios Montt came to power?
Well, the first few months, I would say 1 or 2 months, because of what he was saying, there was a hope, a general hope that things would change, because during Lucas Garcia, massacres and disappearances and extrajudicial executions were taking every day, was part of our everyday life. So we thought that he was going to bring, a stop, to all those killings. But we all were up for a surprise with him, because during his regime, the massacres, the extrajudicial executions, the torture, the disappearances went up, to the extent that it is believed that the majority of the disappeared and killed people, died or disappeared during Rios Montt's military regime.
Marcia, clearly a lot of people died during that time, a lot of people were killed during that time. But as I understand it, this trial focuses specifically on the fact that it was genocide that Rios Montt created.
Yes.
By definition, in your opinion, was it genocide?
Well, I'm not a legal expert. I'm a sociologist, but as a sociologist, I can tell you that genocide is a process. It's an ongoing process that involves the mass killing of a particular population. And there has been 2 truth commissions, one sponsored by the United Nations and the other one by the Catholic Church, and many reports by Amnesty International, by many reputable sources that tell that the genocide, the mass killing targeted the Mayan population believed to be collaborators or sympathizing with the rebels. So at the beginning of the early 1980s, the violence was discriminated violence against particular leaders in the community, Catholic Church and cooperative leaders. And afterwards, with Rios Montt, you have the scorched earth campaigns that was also used in Vietnam. That means that it's a counterinsurgency campaign where the army goes into the highlands and just wipes out 626, it committed 626 massacres. So clearly, the evidence shows that the army went against the 4 groups of the Mayans population. We have 23 groups. It went after 4 groups that had been documented clearly by the United Nations.
Well, Estrada, I want to talk about timing now. We have a tweet here from Rumana. She says, this trial teaches the world that no one has absolute power. We all must pay for our wrongs sooner or later. But we just heard Adriana say that she waited 31 years searching for her family. It was 31 years. So sooner or later, why now?
It has to do with the fact that most of the trial going on right now has 3 different issues here. First, the prosecution has to prove genocide, and the defense has been interesting enough, with the strategy, even getting into some people that were not on the military side during the 36-year-old armed conflict within the country. Secondly, it's timely because we have a president who used to be, he's a retired general right now. So if we get the chain of command, the president himself, who was the director of intelligence during a certain time, during those 36 years, will be also at some point be tried at some point if they get into that level of the chain of command. And third, I think justice is not just for. I mean, the judges right now are dealing with a very interesting issue about was there genocide or not, and if yes, what is the evidence? If within the legal reference in Guatemala, I mean, and there are 3 points in genocide that are very clear here. One, it had to be directed towards one specific community because of their place, because of their ethnicity, because of their language, and that so far, and it's going to be a long trial, let me tell you that, but it's going to be also a very interesting way of how the prosecution is going to prove that and how the defense is going to react to that. So if it's late, we have a problem here. An extra problem is that I have heard the peace accords mentioned several times, but the peace accords themselves state that after the amnesty accord, and for both sides of the armed conflict, that no single case could be taken into justice, after signing the accords, and then also, if there was, it will open the door not just for Rios Montt, but also for all the cases on both sides, because both sides, as we have investigated, both sides committed tremendous crimes in this 36-year-old war in this country. So it's going to be very difficult, and what opens, I think, opens
well, Marcia, I want you to jump in here, but before
yes.
you do, I want you to address that, but I also want you to address this tweet from Aisha, because we're talking about whether or not it's genocide, but then we're hearing from indigenous themselves, and Aisha says, Guatemala's history of violence is a threat to the Mayan and indigenous people, and it can't assure that they'll be safe from abuse. There's also this video comment. Just have a listen to this.
One thing I want to say, what Estuardo is saying, that both sides committed, the United Nations Truth Commission concluded that 93% of all the crimes were committed by the state and only 3 or 5% by the rebels. You can't equate the power of the Guatemalan army, which is a colonial army, funded and trained by the United States, a powerful army against defenseless, vulnerable communities, and the rebels never had the military power that the state had. And in terms of the
I understand your point, and I think it's well taken, but this is not a game. This is not a soccer game or a football game.
You can't say that at some point both parts will be treated at a court of law equally.
Opens doors. Then everybody has to be ready for those doors to be open. And
626 massacres by the state. You can't say that the rebels also will have to be trial in the same way. Of course, I agree with you.
All presidents in Guatemala are the general leaders of the army at the same time, too.
Hey, wait, let's get our community in here.
Exactly. And Adriana, I want you to listen to this video comment on this same issue. Have a listen.
Un juicio por genocidio en Guatemala representa dar dignidad a cada uno de los testimonios de nuestros hermanos indígenas. El silencio solo valida las versiones de que nunca ocurrieron los hechos de terror contra la población civil durante los gobiernos militares en los 70s y los 80s. La verdad y nuestra memoria social son los hechos que debemos rescatar de esta experiencia como una oportunidad para salir de la oscuridad.
So that was in Spanish, and we subtitled it, but basically he said it gives credence to the indigenous brothers who went through this. Adriana?
Can I say something about the comment made by Estuardo about the peace accords and the amnesty? The amnesty was granted to both sides for crimes that are committed during a conventional war, let's say, people die and people people are killed. However, that amnesty says that the crimes against humanity, those are not included in the amnesty. And those are disappearances, torture, mass murders, the massacres. Those are offenses against humanity, and those are the ones that are being judged right now. And I really don't understand what Stuart is saying when he says we have to be ready for the doors that are opening. What do you mean, Stuardo?
I mean that some of the cases for massacres and genocide, it's interesting that you mentioned massacres, because there are also, even in that 3% or 4% that you mentioned, there are also the most recent research has shown that also there were massacres by the rebels, even though it's not to the extent that 93 against 7 against 4. But there are also trials that could become after that, and that would be interesting in what is going on. And last night there was a TV show here, interesting enough, that also both sides, both people in the peace accord agreement who participated in that and the signing of the peace accord agreements did not agree on whether there was genocide or not. One side saying yes, the other side saying no. And this is the big issue. It's going to become a big issue in this country. In the simple definition, this country has to be with the policy by the state that was against one specific group. And somebody mentioned there that there were 4 groups. I think we're forgetting one group too. We're forgetting the Latinos, the mestizo, the mixed people that also were killed in that. Was there a state policy against them? But interesting, I'm just mentioning something that happened Sunday night, last night. 2 sides that were in the peace process didn't even agree on the whether there was or not genocide, and the prosecution has to prove it. And according to the legal system here, our opinions might be interesting and might be important, but at the end there is a legal system here too that has to do with that, and it's getting very difficult for both sides, for one to prove it and for the other one denying it, in both sides.
Well, hold on. I want to let our community know, our Al Jazeera Stream community know that you can follow this trial. Go to stream.aljazeera.com and scroll down. You'll actually see that there's a Ustream that's showing the trial, and it's also being live tweeted, and the hashtag to follow is hashtag Rios Montt. I know you wanted to respond to what he was just saying. Jump in there.
Yes, well, a couple of things about breaking the silence that one of the viewers was mentioning, and the role of the justice system today in a country that is a colonial, has legacies of colonialism, as treating indigenous peoples as second-class citizens, humiliating them on a daily basis. The levels of poverty are appalling. Anyone that goes into the highlands is just simply appalled by the levels of dehumanization that people live day by day. And so I think that for the first time, and thanks to the public ministry and remarkable work done at the grassroots level, mobilizing people in the communities to bring this trial to take place, is just simply remarkable.
Adriana, can you tell us what your experience has been like in this trial, resurfacing all of these issues and memories?
You mean personally for me?
Personally, for you. Is this a good thing that he's being brought to trial, or has this been rough for you emotionally?
It's been hard, because it's not only me, who are having a hard time watching all of this, especially the witnesses and what they are narrating, Yeah. But at the same time, we see it is a very, very small step that is being taken, for justice to really take place in Guatemala. Rios Montt is 84, 86, something like that. He
86.
Maybe he has 10 years left, and nobody knows what is going to happen. But
Adriana, can you really have
there are-
justice here? If he's convicted, will you feel like justice has been served?
I will feel that some kind of justice is being made, because for justice, to reign, to happen, there has to be truth. There has to be all kind of things for true justice to happen. This man, is even denying that there was genocide. And according to international human rights treaties, there was genocide committed in Guatemala. The Historical Clarification Commission was sponsored by the United Nations, and they were the ones who said there was genocide in Guatemala. So there will be, some kind of justice done, but not the kind of justice that we all wished, not only for him, but for all the other genocidal generals, that participated throughout the 36 years of war in Guatemala.
All right, look, we're going to continue this conversation in our online post show. To watch that, just log on to stream.aljazeera.com. But before we go, Malika has a look at some other stories the stream is following.
Anonymous, known for its anti-establishment hacktivist methods, is fighting for its latest cause a little differently, by using the power of a hashtag. The group dominated Twitter over the weekend, calling attention to worsening conditions for Myanmar's Muslim Rohingyas, a minority group denied legal rights by the government. With 43,000 tweets over the past day, the hashtag Rohingya Now trended worldwide as part of Operation Rohingya. Well, the Twitter storm, as they call it, comes in the wake of recent anti-Muslim violence in Myanmar. This newly posted anonymous video shows recent and older images of the unrest. Activists like Nay San Luen shared updates saying the situation in Yangon is extremely tense now, yet not sure how the government is going to protect. Please save the Muslims of Myanmar. The Operation Rohingya account added, "Now tell everyone you know and let's make the politicians and media notice." Well, our thanks goes to Twitter user Voice of Rohingya, who pitched this story to the stream. Our next leads out of Tunisia, where Amina, a women's rights activist, is reportedly safe after being threatened for this photo. A top Muslim cleric in Tunisia condemned this image, which Amina posted online last week, saying she should be flogged and perhaps even stoned for doing so. A petition advocating for her safety has already garnered more than 80,000 signatures. Well, in support of Amina, activists across the globe have posted topless photos to Facebook groups like this one. Most wrote messages of solidarity, like "Free Amina," across their chests. You can find more on both of those stories at stream.aljazeera.com. Let us know what news you're following, and it may end up on a future show. Josh?
Is she a part of the group that you had on the stream?
Femin, yes. Femin activists have definitely gotten behind this to kind of raise the issue.
I see. All right. Well, thanks, Malika. Stay with us. The post show is next at stream.aljazeera.com. On the next show, income inequality in the U.S. is higher than ever, and it's higher than most developed nations. So while the rich get richer, the outlook is especially bleak for America's youth and minorities. Send us your comments on that. And until then, well, we'll see you online. Welcome back. This is the Stream's online post show. We're talking about the genocide trial of Guatemala's former president, Efrain Rios Montt. This is the first time a former head of state has been tried for genocide committed during the Guatemalan Civil War. Let's get back to the conversation. So, the dirty wars of the 80s in Latin America are 30 years old, 35 years old at this point, and yet it seems like it's a major headline in the last couple of weeks. One with the Pope and accusations of him being involved in the Argentinian dirty war, and now with the trial this week. These things don't go away.
Yes, well, I think that it's very important to keep in mind that throughout Latin America there are huge efforts and remarkable, extraordinary efforts to bring all these generals and civilians also to, because these were civic military regimes, let's not forget that, these civilians were also involved here. And for example, in Argentina, there are, I believe, over 100 people already sentenced. In Chile and in Uruguay, there are also human rights crimes. So there is a remarkable effort to heal the open wounds of America or Latin America, as Eduardo Galeano put it once.
Strardo, are there concerns whether Rios Montt will get a fair trial or not?
The feeling in the country is that he has been tried already, and he will be found guilty, and that's interesting because pretty much the jury has had some other cases, very high-profile cases in which pretty much if an army officer or military is involved, their decision is going to be against him. So this is pretty much how it's going on here. But they started a new let's say, media war here, because both sides have a media presence in very strong. This week, which is Holy Week for us here in Guatemala, and it's interesting. Some issues that are coming out is that Rios Montt himself, when he was running for president, one of the provinces where he got the highest vote was precisely on the province he's been accused of genocide, which is El Quiché. Actually, Chichicastenango and Triángulo Ixil belong to this specific province, and he usually got the highest. This is some paradoxes or contradictions in the whole Rios Montt case here. But it's interesting how media it's also getting into this because it's a very high profile. It's the first case whereas somebody accused of genocide is being tried in his or her own country. It's because some of the cases has been outside the country where the allegedly genocide was committed.
Well, Marcia, we opened up the post show, talking about the dirty wars of the 80s, and people want to talk about the U.S.'s role in those. Wame says this is a sham, the trial of Monte, because he will never name who funded him or what country trained his death squads. And another Facebook comment from Billy Clark, who says his backers from Washington, D.C. should be on trial as well. So talk to us about the U.S.'s role.
I absolutely agree with the last one.
That they should be on trial as well.
Absolutely.
Was he a product of the School of Americas?
Yes, and not only that, you have financial institutions like the World Bank, the Inter-American Bank, that financed and funded projects, hydroelectric projects where massacres took place. The Rio Negro massacre, for example, over 400 women, children, and men were mutilated, macheted down, and so there are other actors as well, and not only the United States, which, as we know, has had a dominant role in Latin American politics, but also Israel and Taiwan and even some Latin American countries that supported and trained the death squads and the military and funded them with weapons, with the tools of war.
Adriana, I want to ask you, I know you've been back to Guatemala a number of times searching for your two daughters who were disappeared. I assume you didn't find them, but did you ever find any clues about what happened to them?
No whatsoever. I once was close to an informant, someone that was very close to someone who had directed the operative in which my daughters and my little sister disappeared. And he told me that he was going to try, to find out that he was friends with this person, and that person, by the way, is right now in prison in Guatemala, and is Pedro Garcia Redondo. And he was the commander of the SWAT command. And so he even, this connection or this relationship that there was between this man and myself and the association where the children took several months. And one time the guy said the children could be in the Scandinavian countries. Then next time he would say, we really don't know. And all I wanted to know was if my daughters had been killed. I knew that my little sister was sold into adoption and she's somewhere. Yeah. Who knows where she is? But I wanted to know if my daughters were alive or dead. And if they were dead, I wanted their bones. But nothing came, through.
What do you believe happened to him? What do you believe happened to him?
This is the tragedy of the disappearances. Mm-hmm. The relatives, the parents, the siblings, uncles, grandparents live like with a foot in the past and a foot in the present. Mm-hmm. We live in two worlds. Yeah. We believe, and myself personally, believe sometimes that my daughters are alive and that they are somewhere. But then there are other times when I think, it was the army, were the security forces who took them, so they must be dead. And it's been 31 years since they were taken. I never saw them again. They have not looked for me. So during those moments, I think they are dead. But one thing is true, that I cannot give up my hope of one day finding them dead or alive, and of one day bringing to justice those that were responsible for their disappearance.
I've covered disappearances in different countries around the world, Middle East, Latin America, and it's the same everywhere. I truly believe it's a fate worse than death, because for all the people, all the family around them, it is the continuing open wound of a broken heart for the rest of their lives until they know something. They can never give it up. They can never have closure, and they can never move on. And it's just a heartbreaking condition.
The not knowing.
The not knowing.
But she mentioned something interesting. She mentioned the word hope. There's a tweet here from Paul who says the trial won't raise the dead, but we can only hope the trial will help them close that page in their history so they can start moving on. So we mentioned earlier that justice won't come necessarily from this trial, but what would justice look like?
Well, I think that's something that the Mayans and the Shields who are going into the court has to say what justice would mean for them. But one thing I know by watching the trial every day is that the trial is opening up the unspeakable truth of Guatemala. The trial it has been a window into the perversity of the system, because people are coming, the witnesses are going there and saying they treated us like animals. The government treated us like animals. Why? We are human beings, and they are talking about their situation of as landless peasants, the problem of land, which is at the core of the genocide in Guatemala. So the genocide is really airing all this truth about Guatemala that are hidden from the public, and that's what is remarkable about that.
Estrada, I have just a few seconds here, but I want to know, when does the trial start again so we can follow it via Twitter and the live stream?
It's on. It depends on the judge, on the judge when she calls for the. We have holidays this day, so I think it goes on to after the holidays.
Sometime next week.
Starting April.
Okay. All right. Well, look. Thank you to all of our guests. On Tuesday's show, we're going to examine wealth distribution in the United States, and as the rich get richer and the middle class shrinks, are future generations doomed? Send us your thoughts on that. Until then, we'll see you online.